Today for Devotions with Daniella, we are reading from Daniella's book, Uncultured, about growing up in the children of God and going into the cult of the U.S. Army. This is a chapter called According to the Will of God, and it's published in Rolling Stone magazine. I'm reading through this to get quotes for my musical, and if you would like to read along with me, you can get signed copies attached here. Despite the fact that we practice persecution drills all the time, we're constantly quizzed on what we'd say to suspicious systemites. It never felt routine. The leaders always managed to add a new detail or twist to keep our fear fresh. They picked apart every mistake we made, perfected our word choice, and coached us on our behavior. They needed us to defend their reputation. There was no doubt. We, the youngest of children, were responsible for what happened to the whole family. Our actions could save or damn us all. We were taught to smile and say we were happy. Nobody ever hit us. Nobody ever touched us. We could see our parents whenever we wanted. The adults loved us and wanted what was best for us. Even when we knew we were lying, we were taught that it was what God wanted. We had a whole doctrine called deceivers yet true. We dedicated hours of schooling each day to practice what we would say when the dreaded persecution inevitably arrived. Has anyone ever hit you? No, of course not. The children of God is my true family. Everybody loves me and would never hurt me. Has anyone ever touched you? Of course not. We have a very strict policy that prohibits adults from any sexual contact with minors. Deceivers Yet True had been distributed throughout the world for every family child to read, memorize, and repeat. It was a fun read, illustrated by Uncle Zephaniah, Uncle Jerry Spencer of Fleetwood Mac, also a good artist, and others helped show, especially to us youngest children, the duality of living under a system in which lying could get us into the worst trouble, but was also a technique necessary against police and evil authority figures. I loved the dramatized Bible stories and tales of famous Christians who had to lie to continue God's work. Every narrative centered our superheroes evading the bad people. There was Rahab, the prostitute in Jericho, who hid the two Israelites and lied to authorities to help them escape. That was an example of lying for God, and also of good prostitutes, like in the old days when my friend's moms had done flirty fishing, going out to sleep with the systemite men to bring money and disciples to the family. That practice ended before I was born, but it had brought a lot of good men to the cause. Then there was Brother Andrew, a Bible smuggler who brought the word of God behind the Iron Curtain, misleading border guards to evade arrest and execution as he spread the gospel throughout the godless Soviet Union. I especially loved the story of the prophet Samuel, who deceived King Saul to anoint David as king. God himself was the one who showed Samuel how to lie by pretending to sacrifice a heifer. On and on it went, with example after example of the good guys lying to the bad guys. We understood that, under persecution, anything was justified if it got us home again. Lying to the good guys was forbidden, but lying to the bad guys was our sacred right and responsibility. If heroes, and even God, could lie, we could too. It was us versus them. I also understood that Brazil and Argentina were neighbors. Our compound in Argentina had just been raided. We'd visited that exact commune earlier in the year during one of our biannual faith trips, where we'd leave the country and re-enter at a different place to maintain our tourist visas, which Auntie Dora reminded us was another example of how the children of God needed to lie to systemites to do God's will. I tried to remember the faces of the kids I had met at that commune. I wondered if they were scared, if they were remembering how to lie right. I pictured the little girls with whom I played, like 11-year-old Abigail with her long straight black hair, beautiful dark eyes behind donated glasses a lot like mine, and her nondescript flowery dress from the donation pile. In my mind, I saw her huddled together with the other kids, afraid, enduring hour after hour of questioning. What would I do when I was tried and tested, like my heroes in Deceivers Yet True? How would I act when the enemy was at our gates? Could I be a good girl who would defend our life for Jesus? I hoped so. But then I imagined the kids doing worldly things like eating ice cream, drinking Coca-Cola, and watching television. We had been warned the systemite authorities might use those tactics to bribe us into talking. My stomach growled. Maybe I wanted to be bribed too. I was supposed to be scared of being captured, of being stolen away, but the fear intertwined with a secret yearning I could never name out loud. I wanted to experience the freedom of the outside world. I wanted to be brave and good, but I also wanted to be far away from Uncle Jerry and all the other leering uncles. Over the next few weeks, the sensational news penetrated our closed world as Auntie Dora filtered each outrage of our persecution. The systemites attempted to brainwash the children to think they had been sexually abused, even though everyone knew that all our sex was from God and done in love. An auntie described rigorous medical examinations in detail, how children were stripped naked and held down on tables, then poked and prodded with cold metal tools until they cried. Her description did their job of terrifying me, and I decided to never let a man in a white coat ever touch me. I believed the adults when they told us doctors were evil. Again and again, Auntie Dora called everyone into the great room, and we spent hours, days, weeks, going over the explanations. We were not a cult. Cult was an evil, horrible name that systemites used to describe any group they couldn't understand. Cults committed unalivings, like in Jonestown. They told their followers that their leader was Jesus and spread false doctrines, like David Koresh did in Waco. We were different. We were the only ones living the true word of God, and that meant persecution. The governments of evil countries like America and Argentina demonized religious groups so they could slaughter them, slaughter children with impunity, like what had just happened in Waco. We were not like Waco. We were like Waco. It was so hard to keep track. Waco embedded itself in my nightmares and scared me enough to stop wishing for the police to raid our commune. Systemites unalived children. As much as I loved to fantasize that I had different parents, a family with money and real jobs who sent their kids to normal school, who weren't punished for their spontaneous moments of joy, I spent my days equally terrified of being taken away from my family and the children of God. I couldn't survive in this world, but it was the only world I knew. At age 6, these two truths were already at war inside me. Finally, after almost 2 months had passed, we learned that all of the children and jailed adults had been released and reunited. The systemites dismissed every charge, and the evil judge fell from his high perch, sanctioned by the courts for religious persecution. The kids had done their job and protected the adults. They had convinced the law that we were good, that we were God's children. Here was proof that God would protect us, like Grandpa promised. It was proof, too, that nobody was coming to save me from this life. Not the police, not the big, bad system. No one. There's something comforting about wanting what other people want, to be united in the shared fervor of desire. I hoped and prayed that one day I'd be one of the chosen ones, asked by God to defend against the enemy at the gates. I wanted to be a hero like Gabriella, like Abigail. I took the drills as seriously as every child in the commune. Nobody wanted to be tried and found wanting when our turns inevitably arrived. But still, there was that nagging desire to escape the fear, hunger, and what I knew must be abuse, even as we were drilled tirelessly to deny it. What I couldn't understand was how no one else saw what I did. In the adults' minds, they told the truth when they denied the abuse. In pictures of us, we seem like happy children, dressed in matching outfits, photographed singing and dancing on the streets. The mind can believe whatever it wants, can handpick the evidence, and can throw away the rest.